you just can't change the fabric of your sport. Like the NFL has put in a ton of offensive-friendly rules to make the casual fan watch. Because the casual fan likes points. Casual fan hates 6-3 slobber knockers. They don't want to watch that mess. They don't want to watch punts. They want touchdowns. They want, big plays. That's what the casual fan wants. So, of course, the NFL, looking to hoard as much audience as possible, has made the game very offensive-friendly. But they haven't changed the fabric of the game. So, again, we whine and moan and complain about, it ain't like the old days. You might as well just put flags on everybody and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, they have not changed the fabric of the game and what makes the game special. It's funny. I saw this, and Dave, you might remember because you probably actually watched the pregame football shows, NFL shows back in the day. The NFL used to have the CBS pregame show. It was Brent Musburger, Irv Cross, Phyllis George. It was back in 70s, 80s, whatever.
Wow, Phyllis George.
I know you'd wake up when I said Phyllis George.
Wow.
Wasn't she married to the governor of Kentucky for like a billion years? Wasn't that the deal with her? I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So they had an opening to the show, and someone put it out on social media, and they ran the opening, and they said almost every hit in this highlight package is now a penalty or illegal in the NFL. And they were pretty much right. But, dude's getting clotheslined. The one where Joe Jones picks up Terry Bradshaw, and Jones played for the Browns, and, of course, Bradshaw, quarterback of the Steelers, picks up Bradshaw and tackles him by throwing Bradshaw on his neck and head. And, there's a bunch of hits that today would get you basically suspended. Heck, some may be banned. But the fabric of the game has not changed. It's just, yes, the rules have been tweaked. The NFL doesn't want to get sued. I'm sorry. The NFL cares about players' safety. Every time I say that, it makes me laugh. But they haven't changed the fabric of what we love about the game. And they haven't gotten too big to take the game away from that loyal fan, the one that's in no matter what. Because that's really, in the radio business, we call them P1s, hyper listeners, hyper fans. And that's what you don't want to lose as a sport. You don't want to lose your hyper fan. Now, you take them for granted because you figure, we're always going to have them. That's why we want to bring in the casuals, because we're always going to have the hyper fan. They love us no matter what. But, Tyler has used the cautionary tale of NASCAR. NASCAR went away from the casual fan, went away from the base, went away from what made the fabric of the sport, what made the sport special. And sometimes it is things that don't happen on the field or the track or the diamond or the ice or the court. And the last thing you want to do is turn your back on your hyper-loyal fan base. You just don't want to do it. And college football has got to be careful in the chasing of the dollar not to go too far. And I'm just wondering out loud to myself, is this talk of automatic qualifiers, is that going too far? The idea that you're going to hand a conference X amount of automatic bids because, they want it. They want it. That's what I want. Give it to me. Because we got all the money and the power, and if you don't do it our way, we'll just go away and we'll do it somewhere different because, we just want what we want because of our juice. And I think that now you're starting to get near that line. Because, as much as we complain about what's going on in college athletics, I'm talking about not we here at the game. I say we as fans, not all fans, but we as a percentage of the fans of college athletics, right now we're talking college football, don't like where it's going. Because, again, they like it when we wink, didn't pay the players, at least, on top of the table. Under the table is a different story. and players had to sit out a year before they transferred, and there was more continuity in rosters because really the coach had the power to let the kid transfer or not. And now everything's flipped upside down. And I think there are people that it drives them crazy that the teenager / young adult has got all the power in the game now. And just people want to hearken back to the old days when things were simpler and wonderful. And were they really wonderful? Or is that the perception in your mind it was wonderful? Because you didn't know what was going on behind the scenes like we know today. So there are people that don't like where this is going until they sit down on Saturday and flip on the TV, and starting with College Game Day, they just watch college football. Because the fabric of it still hasn't changed. A lot of things around it are changing, but it's that fabric that hasn't changed. But once you start messing with some things that are part of the fabric, then, like, college basketball, the NCAA tournament, if you win your conference tournament, you get an automatic bid. You're not getting a guaranteed seed, you're getting an automatic bid into the dance, right? But SEC doesn't have X amount of auto bids. ACC doesn't have X amount of auto bids. Heck, the SEC had almost the entire conference go to the NCAA tournament in basketball and in baseball for that matter. But they're not automatic. You have to still earn it with your resume or by winning the conference championship. We're talking about the postseason tournament. This whole thing of giving automatic qualifiers to conferences because, well, we want it, that's almost getting yourself on that line of the fabric of the game. Because, look, it feels like the SEC is always going to have 4 teams that deserve to be in, right? But what if a year they don't? What if a year the Big Ten doesn't? What if some weird outlier year, neither one of those conferences truly have 4 deserving teams? And really, you think it would happen more to the Big Ten than it would to the SEC. But let's just throw them both out there, a crazy year. Then you're dragging in teams that don't deserve to be there because the conference has 4 auto bids. Heck, how about the Big 12? The Big 12 got 1 team in the college football playoff last year. But if you go by a model of 2 auto bids, now BYU is going to get in. When they were 17th in the rankings, and other metrics were held against them, but the Big 12 has to have 2. It got to have 2. So now they get a team that a lot of people think should probably not be in the college football playoff. Now you can take numbers and, oh no, BYU should for this reason or that. You can find numbers to push your narrative. But let's say most of the metrics say BYU really shouldn't be in the college football playoff. Well, they would have been last year because if you go by this model of automatic qualifiers, because, well, Big 12's got 2. So I think that's where you get dangerous now, is once you start going down this road of automatic qualifiers, you start to cheapen the journey. Because now you're going to get 4 no matter what. And that could knock out more deserving teams. So, look, I understand the value of that as you get to, again, is money. Because if you have automatic qualifiers, now you can have play-in games. The weekend before now, instead of having conference championships, you can have play-in games. You can have 2 big play-in games, and you play your way into the college football playoff. How dramatic is that going to be? How much money can we make off of that one, baby? Shovel in the dollars. So that's why you would make the decision of automatic qualifier, because A, you want to be guaranteed X amount of seats at the table for the big meal, and you know how much more money you can get from TV if you have these extra 2 play-in games. So again, every decision is being made about money. I understand it, I get it, but you also need to take a breath. And when you're making these decisions, somebody in the room has to go like this. Excuse me. Excuse me a minute. Excuse me. Is this decision good for the game? Just asking. They got to be careful. Because again, I think the NASCAR model is a very interesting model to look at. Yes, college football is a bigger ratings boomer than NASCAR, but still, you don't want to get away from the fabric of your game, and you don't want to start turning your back on the loyals who have been with you forever. All right, halftime show. We'll come back, hear some more from the folks in Destin. Greg Sankey talking about should there be a czar of college football. That's next here on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler's driving back from Camden, but Dave here is here punching the buttons till 3 on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out as we kick this baby up until 3 o'clock on the game. Tyler rolling his way back from Camden. You know, I don't know if I communicated with him, Dave, about bringing us subs. I almost think that, do I have to say anything? 'Cause it should be after all these years, it should be automatic, right?
Should be, but
You know what happens when you assume, Dave?
this younger generation, man, they
These
have
young kids today, and they're Twitter and their Instaphone and their Talkatic, and these kids.
They don't watch TV on the antenna like we used
That's
to.
right. I remember my dad. And everybody's got this story that they grew up kind of like in my generation, your generation, whatever. It's like, go over there and move around that antenna for me. That's perfect. Oh, don't move. Keep your hand on it.
Put
Want to
one
watch my
leg in
show.
the air and hold on with the other hand.
Want to watch my show.
Put a nickel into the channel changer.
And put the aluminum foil on there. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. All right, so we are rolling up until 3 on the game with the halftime show. Again, a lot of talk in Destin when it comes to Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, to coaches, ADs. There's a lot of people talking. A lot of people talking. Here is Greg Sankey discussing a commissioner or a czar of college football. Here's Sankey's thoughts on that whole idea. That would be cut 6, Dave. Cut 6.
I'm not sure how many votes I'd get for the second part. Probably not sure how many votes I'd get for the first part on one side. You know, that's one. We made headlines yesterday, so what the heck, let's make some headlines today. When I went through the Sugar Bowl experience, you realize how many disparate people are involved. This isn't a criticism, but there's not a central connection point. When I walked into the coaches meeting and we're talking about transfers and windows in January or April, or we do it in December, you know, I've never been one that thinks you're going to have a czar. Some people have asked me about a czar. I'm like, that didn't work really well for Russia. Then we have like the drug czar thing. Remember that? That didn't really, based on what I can see in culture, didn't solve the problem back in the 80s. I think people are going to have a difficult time just subjecting themselves to some imperial order, particularly me. You do go through things where you're like, wow, more coordination could help. I think we work on that, but we all have our own perspectives. And I actually think the different perspectives can help us. Doesn't mean there's not frustration, there's not differences, but you know, if the person shows up with the easy button to solve all this, I'll be as surprised as anyone.
Look, I think we look at this, and what Greg Sankey's saying, he's right. A czar doesn't work. Like, you know, a dictator doesn't work. But if you have someone, like, we always go back to professional sports now because that's where this is all going. And we can act like it's not. We have to stop. That's where it's going. You have commissioners in all these sports. And they are kind of the gatekeeper. They don't make the final decisions, but they get majorities. They talk with the owners. They talk with the teams. They get everybody on the same page. They talk about these ideas for rules or regulations or ways to govern their game, and they get everybody in. Then you vote, and obviously the majority rules. So it's not a czar or a dictator, but I just feel like you need one person that's doing something that really no one else consistently does in the world of college football. And that is care about what's good for the game of college football. It's not Greg Sankey's job, not Tony Petitti's job, not Brett Yorkman, not our boy Phillips in the ACC. Their job is their conferences. Their conferences cut them really nice checks. They can have really good lives and really pretty houses and really sweet, cool cars to take care of their conference, not the good of college football. That's the problem. No one's looking out for the good of the game. No one is sitting down in these meetings and saying, oh, okay, SEC, I see what's good for you. Big Ten, I see what's good for you. Big 12, ACC, I get you dudes. But let's also talk about what's good for the game. And let's see if we can all meet somewhere in the middle where you're getting you and you're getting yours, but let's also talk about what also can be done for the good of the game. That's what you're missing, in my opinion. You're not going to have Fidel Castro sitting there telling all these people what to do in college football. That's not the point. The point is having someone who's looking out for the good of the game. But do you work for the conferences? Yeah, of course you do. Just like Roger Goodell works for the owners. Adam Silver works for the owners. Fred Manfred was a broadcaster. Rob Manfred works for the owners. They all work for the owners, but they're also the guys kind of taking a step back, looking at the big picture, while all the other owners are looking out for their teams. Like the commissioners look out for their conferences. Jerry Jones would love to change the model of the NFL. He can't stand everything's even. He'd love to have the model of baseball where the team with the most money has a better chance to win because nobody's got more money in the NFL than the Cowboys. But that's not the way it works. The NFL is built a certain way, and it's massively successful, and part of it is the way it's built. But you have a commissioner in place who is there to look out for the good of the game while working for those owners. And I swing back, a majority rules. In all these sports, you vote for things, and the majority rules. You know, the tush push got saved because you didn't get enough votes. You didn't get the number of votes you needed to put a rule in place. So if you don't hit the number of votes or the majority doesn't kick it in, then these things don't happen. And just with college football, that's to me what I'm talking about with a commissioner of college football or whatever, is someone who's actually looking out for the good of the game, not just for the good of the conference. That's what I think they're missing. Yeah, that's just me. All right, just in case you just woke up, some very interesting, well, the NBA, we now have one team in the finals, but also some great news regarding Mike Leach that's really cool. We'll get to that just in case you just woke up here on the halftime show. And by the way, Dave, Tyler texted me. He said, I have a bag full of subs for you and Elijah, none for Dave.
Huh. Just wait till I see him.
You can't eat them anyway, right?
No, I can eat a sub. That's healthy.
You know, okay. All right. Okay. So you have a sub.
Yeah.
All right, halftime show. Just in case you just woke up, next here on the game. Just in case you just woke up, a lot of stuff going on in Destin regarding the spring meetings for the SEC. We want to get to Jeremiah Donati. Actually, was on Paul Feinbaum yesterday, the athletic director at South Carolina. And everybody's talking about a lot of different topics in the world of college football. I mean, you have got, does the SEC go to 9 games or stay at 8 games? We'll get into that today. The college football playoff. Are you going to expand to 16? Of course you are. But what's that format going to look like? So there's a lot of different things that's being thrown around. Jeremiah Donati brought up something I think is, I won't say it's the top of the list, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at while we're going over all these changes in the world of NIL and players, leveraging their name, image, and likeness and basically pay for play, which it is. And as we move into a rev share world and all these other things, Jeremiah Donati, because he comes from a background of working for super agent Lee Steinberg, so Donati being in the agent world brings a very interesting perspective. And I want to get to that right now, Dave. It's cut to, which one is it, 15? It's cut 15. Jeremiah Donati discussing that angle of all the name, image, and likeness on the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I realize that the big talk here in Destin is CFP format and conference scheduling, and those things, are obviously different being in one league to the next. But the issues we find ourselves in the Power 4 level are more or less the same. There's just different levels in which we're, competing and trying to find our path forward. But, really enjoyed my time here so far.
Finally, and a lot of these are involving your past, but as somebody who worked with one of the preeminent sports agents of all time at the highest level, when you now see on the other side these agents who are, and agents have a bad reputation as a general rule because they often do a lot of bad things, not people that work for legitimate firms. Is it helpful to can you see through very quickly what's going on that side?
You can, and one of the big things that I've been an advocate for or proponent thereof is having some national standard where we can do a better job regulating the agents, because candidly, when you're in the NFL, for example, you took up to 3% of players' contracts, and then marketing deals were separate, 10, 15, 20%. But what's happening now is these student athletes are being taken advantage of by agents who are not registered, they're not real agents, and their agents are charging them up to 20% just for their compensation contracts,
like television,
the rev share contracts, and so that's just taking advantage of these young people. That's not right, and so federal preemption would do a lot of things for us, but I think solving, having a national agency or agentry registry would be, or agent registry, would be a small step, a small thing, but a big step to helping protect our student athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to talk about being spot on. Donati nails it right there. We're so busy, all these other things, and I get all these other things are important. One of the other issues regarding the student athlete is, the people who represent them. And a lot of times you saw what happened with Nico and that disaster at Tennessee. We saw the disaster at Florida State a couple of years ago with Rashada. You need a couple things. One is you do need a registry. These people who are representing these student athletes should have to register. There should be some criteria here. If it's nothing else, just, okay, who's representing you? That person? Okay. Or they have to be registered in some way, shape, or form. You just can't have, my Uncle Otis's next door neighbor's brother was an accountant. No. Or, my buddy's, he's my agent. He watched Jerry Maguire. No. It's not the way this needs to work. And, again, in the NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, professional soccer, Major League Baseball, they've all got agents who are registered to be agents. They're registered. They just can't show up and represent you. It's not the way the world works. And that has to come into college athletics. And I know this is, it's a tightrope to walk, but I think the other thing that would help out these situations for these athletes being compensated, because there's a lot of shady crap going on. And like Jeremiah Donati said, some of these guys are charging 20%. That's it's like a felony, it feels like. Another thing is transparency in what you're giving the athletes. And I know that's a weird, I know. There's a good to it that it stops them from getting ripped off. The bad is you get these yahoos on social media going after some kid because they find out what he's making on NIL. Hey, man, you're making like $600,000. Catch the bleeping ball, dude. You cost me on my FanDuel. I understand that. I mean, Kansas State went through this in basketball with a couple of their players. Once they got out how much they were making, you know, those guys went through all sorts of crap. So I get that there's a good and a bad to it, but the good is that all of a sudden the shady dealings will go away. And that might be down the road once everyone gets more used to athletes being compensated. But the other thing is register these quote-unquote so-called agents. Have some kind of database or have some kind of criteria to even be an agent, to represent a kid. You have to have, you just can't say, yeah, you know, him and I grew up together. You know, we were in 5th grade class. No, it's got to be something more than that. So Jeremiah Donati nails it there. That would help protect the student athlete from getting ripped off. Because, again, a lot of them don't know what's up at all. There are grown-ups who don't know what's up in dealing with money and representation, much less 18 to 24-year-olds. So, all right, just in case you just woke up here on the game, I think this is great. My goal whenever I come in here and we pull the glass doors and we fire up the video and crack the mics is, my goal is to be as objective as humanly possible. Because I think you deserve that. But when I'm not objective, I try to also say, look, I try to be objective, but I really do like this person or this team, and I really don't dislike people or teams anymore because they don't affect my life every day. They're not my neighbor mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. By the way, that happened a few weeks ago. That won't happen again because that person's arms no longer work. Just saying. But athletes and professional teams or college teams don't affect my life every day, so I don't really have hate. There's people I don't dislike, I don't like in sports, like I'm not a Floyd Mayweather guy. I just don't like the person I have heard about and read about away from the ring. Just not my guy. But that's rare for me. But when I like someone, I'll say, look, I'm going to try to be objective, but I really like this person. I loved Mike Leach. I thought Mike Leach was refreshing. Was Mike Leach perfect? No. Did he say some things sometimes you went, oh, Mike, whoa, dude, yes. But I love the personality. I love the crazy pirate persona. I like the fact that he made things interesting. His teams were fun to watch. I was a huge Mike Leach guy. I just enjoyed Mike Leach. And I think Mike Leach is a Hall of Fame college football coach. And the National Football Foundation announced an adjustment to the eligibility criteria today. Because one of the criteria for eligibility into the College Football Hall of Fame as a head coach is winning 60% of your games. I understand you got a set of criteria. I understand that part if that's the route you want to go. But I think when you put a hard line on Hall of Fame, sometimes everything's so fluid and generations are different and all these things aren't the same. And the National Football Foundation did drop the eligibility requirement from 60% to 59.5. You know what Mike Leach's winning percentage is? 59.6. Woo! Nice work. Nice job. Now Mike Leach can get into the College Football Hall of Fame. That's great. Also, other guys who can benefit could be Les Miles, Rich Rodriguez, And, there was another one. There was another one. I got to look at the article now. I think those two guys, absolutely. And there was another one I can't remember. But those are two guys that can also benefit with the lowering of that standard. Just in case you just woke up real quick, and we'll circle back to this again and what's trending at 2, but Oklahoma City, if you missed it, they dismembered Minnesota last night in Oklahoma City to win the Western Conference Finals in 5 games. Oklahoma City will await the winner of the Indiana-New York series. Pacers are up 3-1, but Game 5 is at Madison Square Garden in New York. So that series, it still ain't over because the Knicks could win, force a Game 6 in Indiana, find a way to pull that off, and then do a Game 7 in New York. But Oklahoma City is in, awaiting the winner of the East. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up next at 803-404-6100 on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head will be here soon. David Dare on the game. Firehouse Subtext, the hour, 803-404-6100. Here on the halftime show. Anonymous texter saying, I won't lie, I still love the games, but besides that, I hate everything about this new world of college football. Another texter says this, do I like it? Not all of it, no. But I understand that the NCAA has basically been breaking the law for years, and now we're starting to do what's legally right. But again, I don't like all of it. And that's the thing. No one likes all of this. Nobody. I can't think of anyone who would go, oh, this is great. Every little thing is perfect. No, not at all. We course corrected by giving the schools all the power to the point they were breaking antitrust laws, to now the players have all the power to where we have massive chaos. And that's where we're at.
So now they're going to let politicians do it?
That's the thing, Dave. Well, when you start begging for the politicians to save you, that's not good.
No.
That's not good. It's never good. Whenever you're begging the politicians to save you, that's not good. But that's where college athletics, that's where they're at right now. They're dying for Capitol Hill to save their tail. And, I say this, and it won't be easy, and you got to figure it out. But eventually, grab your shot glass. You have to collectively bargain. I just don't think Congress is... Look, there are a lot more important things in this country, not to be mean, because I love sports. There are a lot more important things in this country that need to be solved by the folks on Capitol Hill than the ills of college athletics. And I've said this before. If there's a congressman in my district, Dave, who's running on a platform of we want to save college athletics with some kind of federal antitrust exemption, I'm not voting for you. I'm not voting for you. I'm like, wow, you're running on this? How about better schools and better infrastructure and making my life better? And how about all these other things we got going on? A little bit more important than saving an institution that can't save itself.
And do the athletes have any real representation before these politicians? I mean, all the big guys do, but what about the athletes?
Yeah, I mean, all this is, it's so complex, right? And it's so complicated, and they need representation. And that's another part of it. But then you know where you're going. You're going down the road of what, Dave? If you're organizing them.
Organized labor?
Oh, watch your mouth. Watch your mouth there, Captain Dave. Watch your mouth. I saw a really interesting post in The Athletic about collective bargaining. Because there's a lot of people, not just, I wish I was a smart enough guy to say I'm the only person that thought of this, but I'm not. There's a million people smarter than me that think the same thing. That eventually you're going to have to collectively bargain with the student athlete. If you truly want to stay out of court and you truly want to make the game make sense and have guardrails and parameters and rules and all this other stuff. But there are folks that want no part of it, zero part of it. And I've said this a million times. Is it easy? No. Is it going to be just like the professional model? No. But you got to find a way to build a model and build something that is going to be a sort of, quote-unquote, collectively bargained process so you can make this game settle down. You're going to have to. But nobody likes everything that's going on at all. Even the people that are pro-player don't like everything. All right, football and lots of football coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. All right, we just yip about football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Terry Ford, David Ayer punching the buttons. Tyler driving in. Tyler, take your. And I was going to say, Tyler, hurry up and get here because you have subs. But Tyler, take your time so the subs get here safely. I mean, Tyler, take your time so you and the subs get here safely. I slipped. You ready?
Strap those things down.
Wait a minute. Tyler, take your time so you get here safely. And make sure you don't forget the subs. Is that the best way to do it? Did that act like I cared more about Tyler's safety than the safety of the subs?
Sure we do.
Yeah, absolutely we do.
100%. Well, if he's not safe, the subs aren't safe.
Well, as long as Tyler's safe, the subs are safe.
Yeah.
Because we can't get the subs if we don't have Tyler.
Exactly.
So I guess Tyler is kind of more important than the subs, even though he's not.
Right.
Oh, man. All right. Talking a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour. Like always, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. And our focus, of course, is on Destin, where the SEC spring meetings are being held. I want to get back to another cut from Greg Sankey real quick. Couple of cuts I want to get to. Here's Greg Sankey talking about, look, this 9-game schedule, it's coming. Once ESPN decides they want to throw more money toward the SEC for an extra game, 9 games is going to happen. Again, like we talked about in the opening riff of the show, this is being decided because of money. That's where it's going. There will be 9 games because ESPN will pony up the dough. Even though there are coaches who only want 8, and I understand why, 9 games are going to happen, and here are the reasons. Money. Oh, and then there's money. Here's Greg Sankey talking about a 9-game schedule, which also will coincide with this whole thing about play-in games. And if you haven't heard exactly what that is, let's take an easy model with the ACC. Let's say the ACC gets 2 automatic qualifying bids for the playoffs. The number 1 bid will go to their conference champion. Then you have that other bid that's open, and you will have the number 2 and number 3 place teams in the ACC play for the second bid, a play-in game. In the SEC, let's say you have 4 bids. One of the models being thrown out, if you do have 4 automatic bids, is the number 5 and 6 teams in the SEC will play for, number 4 and 5 team will play for the 4th bid. Or 4, 5, 6, and 7 will have a kind of like a play-in round. They'll go 4 of those teams will get to 2, and then the last 2 will play for the final bid, and the top 3 teams will get in. That's the model. So that is out there right now. So automatic qualifiers, play-in games, and a 9-game schedule. Greg Sankey in the next 36 seconds will cover all 3. Cut 4, Dave. Hit it.
Well, the 9-game schedules, like real playing formats or concepts, they're just out there. So is there somebody who said we have to have one to have the other? Yep. Do I think that way? I don't. You can make independent decisions. Back to my observation, you can make decisions about what you can control, and then you can have influence over other decisions you don't control, you participate in. But the timing's not what I would have designed from an optimal standpoint.
So basically, Greg Sankey's saying, okay, just because we could go to 9 games doesn't mean we're having a play-in round, which is smart for Greg Sankey to say because it's true. But the feeling is if you go to 9 games, you're going to have these play-in rounds where the top 3 teams will be guaranteed spots in the college football playoff, and then you'll have a play-in round to be the final team in the college football playoff from the SEC. That's just, it feels like all that's running together with 9-game schedule, automatic qualifier, play-in round. Now, it feels like all of it's going to go hand in hand, but it doesn't mean that it has to. And again, Greg Sankey is the master of leaving himself an escape door. Greg Sankey is not about making absolutes about anything because he's smart enough to know that could blow up in your face. But I feel like 9-game schedule will go with automatic qualifiers, will go in play-in round. But the most important thing of it all is the subs are here. Tyler did it. Tyler's the man. Nice work. engineer Randy is escorting Tyler. And Randy's not even asking for a sub. He's just being a good guy. Because Randy already got a sub. Because he's a smart guy. Come on in, man. Look at your new fancy microphone.
I know, Randy, man, great job in here. You are very fast and very efficient.
Hey, look how clean this is.
I know, it looks great.
If you're watching the video, you can I said this for fun. So the good news is it looks clean in the video. The bad news is you can see our faces better.
That's true.
That's not a good thing.
You can still stand up, though, which is nice.
Which is good because,
You're worried about that.
I was concerned about the standing up part because I like me some standing up during a show.
So the funny thing is, our guy Dreamy Josh is not here this week.
I know.
So I had an abundance of extra subs because he wasn't there, working as he often does.
Let's go with the coincidence here, Tyler. Dreamy Josh not there. A lot more subs for everybody else.
I know. We did have to make our own list this time because usually he's the one that crafts the list.
Yeah, he's the list guy.
Chris had to go find a piece of paper in his car to write it down on. And I was like, wow, we're not prepared.
I'm picturing Clark rummaging through his car looking for a piece of paper.
He wrote on the back of a grocery list or something like that.
That's too funny. But a bag of subs, and you really did. I thought you were exaggerating.
No, I'm not kidding. And like Wes and Chris, Haley was there. They're all like, I don't want to take anything. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm taking back 6 boxes. So I gave Randy one. There's like 3 or 4 more in there.
And you know what?
Take your pick.
Yeah, do we give Dave one? Because, we're looking out for Dave's health.
Well, Dave, can you eat subs? Like, I don't, you're eating asparagus and carrots these days. They don't have that there.
Wait a minute. There was no asparagus and
there was not. They don't have that.
Sub?
They don't have that sub yet.
That's not a hook and ladder?
It's not. There's lettuce and onions and things like. There's healthy things you can put on subs, but no, not asparagus and carrots.
Subs pass the test, believe me, especially Firehouse subs.
Dave's doctor. It's on Dave's list of foods he can eat. Firehouse subs.
Specifically Firehouse,
yes, Firehouse
like
subs.
They put the little trademark logo next to it for you.
Yeah.
Right. So nice work, Tyler. We were concerned about your safety driving all the way back from Camden, by the way. We wanted to make sure you got here safely.
Well, I'm competitive, right? So me and Haley pull out at about the same time.
I know where this is going. Go ahead.
I forget the name of the road out there, but I probably gap her by a good mile or 2 by the time to get to the interstate, and I guess just the slowdowns of going through the city. As I pull into the parking deck, I look up and she's on my rear bumper.
Oh,
like, man, thought I was gonna win.
Was were you trading paint with her?
Not quite.
But you would have if you had to.
Yeah, she was probably safer on the road than I was. But by the way, my car smelled great on the way here. When you have 8 different subs, and it was obviously kind of warm and steamy out there, so it's like they're being cooked all over again.
By the way, keep your windows rolled up.
Oh no, I'm gonna go back out there later. It's gonna smell amazing.
It's gonna be nice. Dude, I love your air freshener.
Right.
All right, we're talking about nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Okay, Dave, we just heard Greg Sankey talking about the 9-game schedule, which will happen eventually. Now, I want to grab another one that we've been talking about a ton, especially the coaches in the SEC, well, coaches all over the country, talking about a singular portal window, and a lot of people have been pointing to January as the spot for this portal window, and to get rid of the 2 portal window concept that's going on right now. It's cut one, Dave. Commissioner Greg Sankey of the SEC talking about just 1 portal window and specifically looking at January.
Yeah, on that one, I walked into football coaches meeting, and one of the issues that they had preset to talk with me is the transfer portal. There have been, there's an AFC idea to do it in January, then there was just an idea from I'm not sure where to do it in May, then one in March and April. So they reiterated they think what we've done as a conference is healthy. We don't have an inter-conference transfer opportunity in the spring. I think that informs that it would be healthier to have a transfer portal in January, to just have one 10-day period that allows people to move, but also allows you to prepare your team, go through spring together. There's not anything that can replace the volume of time and that preparation. And then the desire would be to keep that continuity through May, June into the season. I think there's an idea, I'm not sure who or what it's attributed to, that April is the ideal date. We talk specifically through, you're going to have people that don't want to be there you don't have a January portal. You're going to have tampering as people think about, well, maybe I'm going to move in April. Those are two high-level concerns, and where our coaches were is that kind of April idea is highly problematic, and they prefer a January portal. That was the AFCA's concept coming out of their meetings in Charlotte in January, but they'd rather have January and spring rather than some kind of April circumstance where there's no other outlet.
Yeah, it feels like January would be the spot, right? That just we talked about this yesterday. It just feels like that's the sweet spot for this thing. Is a January only portal window. Nothing's perfect.
Sure.
Maybe February, if not January, but January feels like most folks are circling around there because, again, you have the spring, your rosters are together. You don't have to worry about the quote unquote tampering that just ruined Nebraska's roster.
Yeah.
As I say sarcastically.
According to Matt Rule.
Yeah, it feels like January might be the meat in the middle.
Yeah, that's the popular thing among coaches when you hear them talk. And again, it's a process. It's not like you say, hey, let's just have a portal window in January, and then boom, it happens. There's, red tape to get through and all those kind of things. So we'll see if it happens. You always have to wonder, here comes the word again, antitrust. Does not having an April window now limit somebody that maybe shows out in the spring and says, hey, I think I could find myself a better landing spot, or I could get more NIL by transferring after spring ball? Like, that possibility is always going to be out there, which could be a potential hurdle to making this happen.
And when we brought it up yesterday, anything you do, you have to step back and say, all right, we're breaking antitrust laws? Are we going to get sued? What's the deal with this? It's the reality of the world we live in now.
It's like when you're going on a trip and like right before you leave, you turn over everything in your house or apartment, making sure you didn't forget anything. Are we sure we've got everything? Are we sure we're not forgetting anything? That's pretty much the same thing here. Like, okay, we're going to do this. Are you sure we're not violating antitrust? Are you really sure? Did you look under the couch? Are you sure?
Don't forget your cords. Get your cords. That's a funny thing, is like whenever we go somewhere and stay at a hotel, and we stayed in a ton of hotels in the last year because, we were doing the college visit tour.
Sure.
And the whole thing, everybody got the cords? You didn't forget your cords, did you?
Yeah.
Phone cord, laptop cord, we got all of our cords?
Yeah.
Look under the bed.
Hey,
sure.
we haven't used this thing in 5 years. Do we need it?
Yeah.
Do we need to take it?
You never know.
You never know.
Put it in the bag, because that's what you're doing, because you're just, that every decision you make, you're opening the door to get sued.
Yes.
Because and by the way, your record in court, how many wins NCAA have again?
It'd be 0 to my recollection.
That would be none. All right, we are talking nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. I want to get to another Greg Sankey cut next, because this is something we've discussed on this show since I've been here. With all these things going on, one of the things that, and maybe it's just me, but one of the things that I think would stink is if schools start cutting non-revenue generating sports.
Yes.
Because they cost you money. Because these are student athletes who bust their hump just as hard as football players or men's basketball players or whatever, and they play collegiate sports as well. And just because they don't generate money, it's always been built in that and there are more of those sports, by the way, than sports that make money.
Yeah, the Olympic sports for the most part.
Right. So Greg Sankey discusses those sports looking forward here in the future of the world we're going to live in, with rev share and things of that nature. We'll hear that next here on the halftime show as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Talking a ton of football in the 1 o'clock hour, like always, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, David Ayer, as we get it cooking. All right, so Greg Sankey talking obviously a lot at the spring meetings and Destin to the media. One of the things we've talked about on this show, again, is about the non-revenue generating sports. What's going to happen to them in the new rev share world? Are they going to, or some going to get cut, become club sports, intramural sports, whatever? What's going to happen to the non-revenue generating sports that really very few people care about? Most people who care about college football and men's basketball or women's basketball or baseball never goes, man, I hope nothing happens to that lacrosse team or that field hockey crew or that volleyball team. A lot of them don't. Most people don't care.
I'd say the average college sports fan probably doesn't. Now, again, if you have a vested interest in it, your kid's on it, you did it yourself.
Exactly.
Some people do just legitimately enjoy those sports, but that pales in comparison to the vast majority that's in this for college football, basketball, baseball to a smaller degree, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because look, there are pockets of places that college baseball makes money, but most of the country, college baseball is not a revenue-generating sport. Volleyball. There are places like Nebraska where volleyball is insane.
Sold out the football stadium.
But in most places, collegiate volleyball does not generate revenue.
Right.
Lacrosse in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast.
Shout out Cornell, national champs.
We don't talk about that. You know who they beat, right?
I know.
We don't discuss that. They haven't won since, 75 or 74?
Something
Last time they
crazy
won,
like that.
76.
I know you're so big on Maryland men's lacrosse.
I have my lacrosse gear in my car. You know, I never played. I might be one of the 5 people in the state of Maryland. I just had no interest. Plus, I mean, it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
It's a rich kid sport.
They were interviewing 2 of them on ESPN the other day when you're here. I'm like, yep, those look like lacrosse players.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got a lacrosse stick in my neighborhood. You use it to beat somebody.
Or to break into cars.
Exactly. Break into a house. Knock out a basement window. This lacrosse stick's great. But, yeah, those kind of sports don't typically generate money at all. So what's going to happen? Here's Greg Sankey. It's cut 2, Dave, talking about the non-revenue generating sports, the possibility of them being cut.
We had that conversation up front. I think the concern whenever you have $20 million that goes out from one year to another, you've seen people reporting about staff cuts or different methods of travel. I think that's an indication of the dialogue last year that our schools very much want to continue with the breadth of sports. So short term, continuing with sports sponsorship is absolutely at the forefront of their thinking. How things develop and the pressures that are created down the road, people are attentive to. I said at media days 3 or 4 years ago that when you change the economic model of college sports, you change our Olympic development and our Olympic support program. And I think we're all attentive to that. And we continue to have those conversations. We want to be successful in that so-called non-revenue sports, but they have a great deal of meaning on our campuses. And I think that drives the philosophy. But this change is an enormous change. And I think it's been underappreciated when you have that amount of money flowing out of a budget, what it could hand you.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need people to step up and contribute, alumni, people to donate money. And by the way, there's this thing called the collectives. Mm-hmm. And that's why when the NCAA makes me laugh, when they push back on collectives, say, hey, we're rev share now. That means collectives are gone, right? No. And this is one of the reasons why they're not gone.
In fact, I think they just became more important than ever, right?
Yes. All right, well, let's circle back to South Carolina for a minute. Okay, let's say South Carolina goes all in, full boat on rev share, which really is not $20.5 million. It's like $18.5 million. Once you get right down to it, we take out new scholarships, things of that nature, you're really looking at $18.5 million.
Yeah, and 13 of it goes to football specifically.
Okay, then you got men's basketball, which everyone has said there will be significant financial backing to men's basketball.
Yes.
Then we have, the best women's basketball program in America. You think that runs for free?
No. In fact, that's probably going to yield more than the average women's basketball program will.
And then, hold on. we have a baseball program steeped in tradition here.
Yep.
That, oh, by the way, has just hit a brick wall. And if you want to get it off the brick wall, clean it up and get it back on the road again, is that free?
No, it's not.
So that's my point. You think collectives are going to go away?
No.
And then try this one. Ready? We're going to have less money for football and more money for these other sports. How's that going to go in a football crazed area? How's that going to go?
Yeah. We'll see.
So my point is, collectives are important. Collectives aren't going away. You still need collectives because you're going to find non-traditional ways outside of rev share to be able to fortify and fund these other sports programs that mean a lot to you.
And every competitive program, and I imagine pretty much everybody in the SEC is going to spend up to that total. You know, you're not going to have, hey, you know, Mississippi State, they're only going to be toting about $15 million. Like, no, they're going to find ways to get all that money from the revenue sharing side of things. But again, it's going to come down to who has the extra when it comes to their collectives. And you're going to look at Texas, you're going to look at Alabama, LSU. These programs that we think about having the most money in the SEC in college football are still going to have the most money. And again, that's going to be the difference now.
This is not a salary cap that's going to be fair across the board, and that's the point. You need collectives. Collectives need to step up. Alum, donors, you know, the people with the big wallets, they're going to be even more important if you have an athletic program that wants to be good in other sports besides football or men's basketball. It's just, it's the reality you live in now.
It is, and the question that I've always had this entire time in these past couple of years that revenues or NIL has grown and grown and grown, at what point do we go too far? At what point do people not see a worthy enough return on investment? Like, yeah, it's great to see your team playing for a national championship, but like, if you're routinely cutting $1 million check, can you afford that every year for the next 15 years? I don't know.
Well, you and I have talked about this. You know, this never stops.
No, it doesn't. It's an arms race. Everybody's getting bigger and more and more. And, you know, I know Sark clarified, hey, we don't have a $40 million roster. We have a $25 million roster this year.
Ready? Okay.
Okay, well, and guess what? In, 5 to 6 years, we're probably talking about $60 million rosters because everybody's going to try and outdo what the – because, again, last year, Ohio State, $20 million. Okay, well, Texas spent $5 more than that this year. Next year, $30 million, $40, $50. Who knows where this goes?
What happens with salaries in professional sports?
They're capped.
But they escalate.
Well, they do, yes.
Yeah, I mean, right? Look what a quarterback makes today compared to what a quarterback made 10 years ago.
Every quarterback becomes the highest paid quarterback when they get their new deal done, and then 5 minutes later, somebody else outdoes that.
Exactly. So Greg Sankey talking about hitting the revenue share cap, and I have purposely not listened to this cut because I want to hear this 10 seconds of gold. This is Greg Sankey being asked, hey, Gregors, Sank, will all SEC teams hit the revenue share cap? Cut 3, Dave.
Well, the beauty of this league is I really don't have to ask that question. I think the competitive spirit drives the answer of yes without having to ask the question.
Can I translate? Of course, you idiot. Every school in this conference is going to spend up to that.
This is the SEC, bub. This ain't the Ivy League.
You want to be cheap, go to the ACC.
Exactly. This is the SEC. Either spend or leave.
Pretty much.
But that's the point. All these schools are going to have to hit the 18-5.
Yeah.
Like you said, Mississippi State can't go, well, we're kind of in Starkville. We're not like in a big old city with a lot of like bazillionaires. No, we don't care how you get there. Just get there, dude.
Yep.
Just get there. And oh, by the way, Mississippi State, they care about baseball a lot.
They do, yes.
So, again, it's the SEC. They have the best football conference, the best men's basketball conference, the best baseball conference. And by the way, the women, South Carolina and LSU have won national championships recently.
Yes, they have.
And again, there can be an argument to be made of other conferences when it comes to women's college basketball, but the SEC is right there with everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say they're top dog right now in terms of like depth of conference.
It's not like the other stuff, like baseball, it's easy. Men's basketball, easy. Football, it's easy to look at.
Sure.
Women's basketball, yes, they probably still are the best, but it's not like leaps and bounds compared to the others. But still, they're the best.
Yeah, I don't think they set a record for teams in the tournament this year, but still.
But still, you have, 2 of the last 3 national champions are from the SEC.
Yep.
That's the way it goes. A lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Caleb Williams got to talk about his dad and the book. And we'll hear what Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears starting quarterback, has to say about the book from Seth Wickersham that said Caleb Williams didn't really want to be a Bear. But now he is. We'll get to that next as we talk nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. We pretty much yip nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, Monday through Friday, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. We'll switch over. We will get back to what's going on in Destin. I want to hear, I think this is a very interesting cut. Heather Dinich and Brandon Marcello detail the debate between the conferences over the college football playoff format. I want to get to that this hour because I think that's interesting. And Ross Dellinger, his riff on the model, the 511 model.
By the way, the Dellinger riff, take a shot every time he says a number. By the way, in 2 minutes, you're going to lose your mind.
But first, I want to go to the NFL real quick. Right now, you're getting some mini camps popping up around the league as everybody's getting ready for, preseason camp, training camp. And the Bears, Caleb Williams, their starting quarterback, got to speak in front of microphones to the Chicago media and the NFL media for the first time since the word of Seth Wickersham's book, the word spread that in that book about quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and his family pretty much say, who wants to go play for the Bears? That's where quarterbacks go to die.
Yeah.
And the talk and the concern of playing for the Bears, it was a controversy for a minute or two, so Caleb Williams has to address it his first time in front of the media. And here's Caleb Williams, his thoughts about what's in the book about his possibly not wanting to play for the Bears during the draft process. Hit it, Dave. It'll start. Always takes a minute. You know how this goes.
I do.
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
No, it might not. We'll see.
Main goal of all of that is to, through all of, what was, going on, through all of what happened in last year and previous years, I think that was enticing. I think that was something that was glaring to me that, I wanted to come here and, be the guy and be a part and be a reason on why, Chicago Bears turn this thing around. So that last thing that was said and all of that, I think was the most important thing is that I wanted to be here, that I love being here. I love my teammates. I love all the people that got me here, family, friends, Ryan, Kevin, Flus and Shane, all those guys that, went through all of that process with me to get me here. But it was all those things, like I said, were thoughts. But the main goal and the main objective of being here is to turn around. That's why I was selected number one. And so, that's what we're here to do. That's what they brought, me here to do. That's what they brought all these guys here to do. Joe, DJ, all these different guys. And that's why they brought Ben here. And so, like I said, it's a challenge. And we look at those challenges and, we don't laugh. We look at them really, really seriously. And, we go attack them, to the best of our ability to go and change it and turn it around. So, yeah.
Got any dressing for that word salad?
That was like Golden Corral worthy buffet word salad.
It's like, hey, did you say this or didn't you? Yes or no?
Yeah, and the interesting part is he didn't really address it.
No, he didn't. He's like, I'm excited to be here. Want to be helped. Like he never denied saying at some point, I don't want to play for the Bears. Which, like, does anybody blame him for thinking that? No, absolutely not.
Sometimes this can be so simple, and I do every now and then just because, everything gets so convoluted, right?
Yes.
Sometimes as simple as this, ready? That was a concern going into the draft process. The last, the quarterback's never thrown for 4,000 yards with the Bears. We've seen the issues that happen with the last so many quarterbacks, with Trubisky, with Fields. So, of course, myself and, ready for it, my team,
yes,
we did have a concern, but the Bears addressed those concerns, and I felt quite comfortable and was quite happy and excited to be drafted by the Bears after they gave me the plan.
If you ask any player that's been drafted by, like, the Browns in the past 20 years, I guarantee you all of them said leading up the draft, I really hope the Browns don't take me at some point.
Sure.
Now, again, when you get drafted, you see what the lay of the land is. You can obviously change your attitude, but, again, I don't blame him for thinking that before the draft process, but, like, dude, just, like, own up to it.
Do you think anyone, once you get past the idea, I'm just happy to get drafted. Well, let's get past that. And if you said to someone, give me a list of teams you don't want to be drafted by, everybody's going to put Carolina Panthers.
If not one, somewhere in the top three, probably.
They're all. If you give me 5 teams you don't want to draft you, the Panthers are going to be on almost everybody's list. Right?
Panthers, Browns, Who else?
They're the two obvious. I'm going through the top of my head right
Titans,
now.
probably right now.
Right now, Titans, because they're a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Used to be the Lions, but not
Used to be
anymore.
the Lions, not anymore.
There used to be Washington before Snyder got kicked to the curb. It's a short list now, but I get being a quarterback. You don't get drafted by the Bears.
No.
And you don't want to go to Carolina and play for that goofy owner. You don't want to go to Cleveland because everybody's career dies almost except Myles Garrett, it feels like. So you get concerned, especially if you're a high draft pick who you know you're going to get drafted, right? If you know you're going in the first round or the first 3 rounds or whatever, then you're going like this. God, I hope that team fill in the blank doesn't draft me. If you're Caleb Williams, just tell the truth.
Uh-huh.
No one, I mean, honestly, it's the idea that you did bumble and stumble through that. It's like, just say, of course I didn't. Of course I had concerns. But then you follow with this. After meeting with everyone in the organization, my concerns went away because I felt really confident about the plan.
Well, and that's the thing is you can have the thought of, oh, I really hope I don't go there because, again, the track record for quarterbacks is not great. Okay, now I'm here. What can they do to help me be the guy that's going to buck this trend?
And to be fair, they've done a lot. Now, it didn't work out last year because they did everything but upgrade the offensive line. They didn't think the offensive line was going to be as bad as it was last year, to be fair to them.
Sure.
But the offensive line was terrible. But to be honest, Caleb Williams didn't help either by holding the ball and trying to make something out of nothing all the time. And he wasn't very accurate. He had one of the lowest accuracy on passes in open windows in the league. So he wasn't very accurate. So he didn't help out either. But it was a mess. But they did bring in wide receivers. You know, they brought in Keenan Allen. They got DJ Moore. You know, and then this year they've added more receivers. They've drafted receivers the last 2 years. This year they went out and got a bunch of offensive linemen, whether it's through the draft or free agency. So they're doing everything possible for Caleb Williams. Hired a head coach who is a quarterback whisperer and an offensive guru. So they're doing everything possible to prop this cat up.
Sure.
And he could have said this too. I'll give you the other one that would have been really, really good. Because this one just hit me. So, yeah, I had concerns because who wouldn't, to be quite honest, if you look at the track record of quarterbacks in Chicago. But you know what? After talking with them and hearing their plan, I thought to myself, I want to be the guy to buck the trend. I want to be the trendsetter. I want to be the first great quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Who's with me? And you rip your shirt off and run through the place.
I was going to say, did his, PR team not help him prep an answer for this?
Because you have a PR team with your Caleb Williams, right?
Like, hey, they've uncovered something from the past that doesn't make you look good.
So let's sit down.
Here's how we're gonna. Here's what you're gonna say when you're asked about this.
Absolutely. I thought, and that ran through my head yesterday too, and I forgot about it. I'm glad you brought it up. Don't you have that media/PR advisor that you hired when you got drafted
for exactly these situations?
This is why. I mean, no offense to Caleb Williams, no one's going to remember yesterday's bumbling and stumbling. But I thought about that too. I'm like, man, didn't you get coached up on this? Did someone sit you down? How about here's a simple statement. Memorize it like it's your words off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Or here's an idea. Now I want you to embellish it naturally so you don't sound like you're reading our statement.
Yeah, pretty much.
This ain't tough, Tyler.
You wouldn't think.
This ain't tough.
Maybe we could get jobs as PR people at the NFL. Because I can come up with a generic answer that can get you around this.
Because you know what it is sometimes? I think they overthink it all.
Sure, it's got to be fancy and it's got to be, again, got to throw some SAT words in there. No.
Just connect to the normal person with an answer that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not tough, man. Just not
And
tough.
also, you can tell when people are saying something that's pre-written, right?
Oh.
It's got to sound normal.
Yes. The worst thing is the written apology or the apology that you memorized or whatever, because you don't sound sincere, right? Everything off the cuff is always better because you sound sincere. Every time. No doubt. All right, Firehouse Sub text the hour next, 803-404-6100, as we roll through nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. David Ayer, Tyler's here. Terry Ford, we go to 3 on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare. All of a sudden, we're a lot more popular here on the first floor since we have the Firehouse subs. Elijah's here, Randy the engineer. People we don't even know. Sort of like when we had the Christmas party. Was that 2 years ago, Dave, the Christmas party where we accidentally invited the entire building?
Yeah. The Tupperware incident.
The Tupperware guy's still the best. Dude walked into our party with 5 Tupperware containers, and he went over and filled them all. He's like, thank you so much. And I've never seen that guy again.
Yeah, I know.
Never seen that guy again. All right, we'll get our Firehouse subtext the hour 803-404-6100.
You know, I told you I saw Tom Brady in the elevator the other day.
Uh-huh.
Asked the guy who comes in at 3, the security guy.
Uh-huh.
He's seen him as well.
He's just trying to make you feel good, Dave. He's just going along with you, Dave.
What's the context here, Dave?
I get on the elevator one day, right, going up to the 19th floor.
Sure.
Tom Brady gets on.
Tom Brady got.
Now, this isn't like a guy that works at Wells Fargo named Tom Brady.
No, this is a guy.
Just read his name
I
tag.
think this is a guy just some guy that probably looks like Tom Brady.
Like 6'4", looks exactly like him.
Did you talk to him?
No, I was in awe. I was like, this can't be Tom Brady.
Well, when you meet those people, you're supposed to ask, hey, are you Tom Brady? They're supposed to confirm or deny that they are.
If they're smart, they say yeah, whether they are or they aren't.
Sure.
Just for fun. So next time you see this Tom Brady guy, you have to look at him and say, hey, are you Tom Brady? Just ask.
He got off to see our friend Meredith, who plays golf. You know Meredith, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a financial advisor there.
There you go. You know what? Dave, you might have been in the elevator with Tom Brady because Tom Brady probably, out of all the places to pick to come to get your financial advice,
Columbia, South Carolina.
I'm sure this is.
Why not?
Why not? Those people are smart on the 15th floor. They know what's up.
They know what's going to happen. We're going to get on the elevator later, and Tom Brady's going to be on there.
How funny would that be, by the way?
They're like, well, I guess Dave was telling the truth.
Dave was right. But yeah, if you look like somebody and somebody thinks you're them, just go with the flow.
Sure.
Go with the flow. My oldest kid, when he was young, almost looked just like Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
He had the hair and everything. And there were girls who thought he was Justin Timberlake. And he would go, no, I'm not. And I looked at him and go, what's wrong with you? Be Justin Timberlake.
See how long it can last.
Just keep going, man.
Yeah.
Ride the wave. My stepbrother, when he was younger, looked just like Stone Cold.
Okay.
Had the shaved head and everything. And he was a lifter. So he was yoked up like it.
Yeah.
And we were in like an Arby's outside of Baltimore, and these 2 girls walked up and said, "Really sorry, but are you Stone Cold Steve Austin?" And he went, "No," or whatever. He's a real laid back guy. And he walked away and said, "Mark, what's wrong with you? You should have been Stone Cold. I could have been The Rock."
He went, what? What?
I looked just like Brad Pitt in high school. Only problem was nobody knew who Brad Pitt was.
You kind of look like him now, Dave. Don't
No.
cut
Brad
yourself.
Pitt looks like you, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
A lot of people look at Brad Pitt and say this, you look like David Dare.
Captain Dave back in Columbia.
He got in the elevator with Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, Dave, next time you get in the elevator with Tom Brady, at least do the thing where you pretend to be on the phone and get a video. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like, at least give us the evidence.
right.
Yeah, help a brother
Good
out,
idea.
Dave. All right, Firehouse up text the hour real quick.
Nameless texter in reference to Caleb Williams. He's less liked than Aaron Rodgers already in the city of Chicago.
No, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if he's that far yet, but I think there is a group of people in that city once that came out, and plus how he played last year. And
He's not lights out this year.
oh, it's going to start.
Yeah, it's going to start.
There's no doubt. So thank you for the text. We always appreciate it. 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse sub-text line. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. That's coming up next. More from Destin. We're from Ross Dellinger, Heather Dinich, Brandon Marcello. That's all next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, here to help you if you're a guy and you're getting older And just stuff ain't like it used to be. You're not in the prime in anything. You don't sleep like you used to. You don't lift at the gym like you used to. You don't recover from exercise like you used to. You know, you can't remember where you sit stuff, or you walk in a room and you go like this. What the hell am I doing in here? You don't have any life drive, personal drive, sexual drive, professional drive. You're just all driven out. And it could just be low testosterone. That could be it. One way to find out. 803-875-MENS. Call the Men's Clinic, set up a free confidential consultation. Tell them your story. If they think it could be low T, they'll do lab work. If it comes back low testosterone, they will put you on a program specifically designed for you to get you back to feeling like you again. 803-875-MENS. Make that call, the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. What's trending at 2 on the halftime show, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. David Ayer steering the ship. Tyler back from Camden.
Look, I'm working to confirm if Tom Brady was in Columbia or not. I've got nothing here.
Yeah, we're working on it to try to back up Dave's hallucination. I mean, Dave's story. about Tom Brady being in an elevator with him here in the Bank of America building on Gervais in Columbia, South Carolina.
Well, the question is Tom Brady telling the story that he got to meet Captain Dave in an elevator is the better question.
He's sitting there eating his avocado ice cream.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, man, I'm telling you, no, dude.
No,
dude,
it was
dude,
Captain Dave.
Seriously, it was Captain Dave. No, I'm sure. I don't know what he's doing in Columbia, South Carolina, but it was Captain Dave.
We talked Lock and Poe for 5 floors.
Well, that's Dave, and you always think about things you could have done better in situations after the fact, but if you would have tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, I can sign an autograph for you if you would like.
You know who I am.
Hey, Timmy, I know you're new around here, but I'm kind of a big deal.
All right. What's trending at 2 is Tom Brady. What's trending at 2, obviously a lot going on in Destin with the spring SEC meetings. And we've heard a lot from Greg Sankey over here during the show. We'll pivot a little bit because most of the talk at the SEC meetings is the playoff format.
Yep.
And the debate that you know is going to happen between the conferences because the SEC and the Big Ten want certain things, and the Big 12 and the ACC, even though they know they got zero juice, they're going to try to fight back as much as they can because they don't want to be perceived, we're just going to roll over for you because we know that, you guys bring the money.
They have to pretend to have some integrity.
It's that fight where, like you're sitting there and the dude's like twice as big as you and you look at your buddies, hold me back. Hey.
Yeah.
You're lucky I can't get around my buds. Hold me back, don't let me go. Hey, dude, trust me. I get away from these guys. Body bag. Don't let me go. Please, God, don't let me go.
Pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of what we have here. Here is Heather Dinich and Brandon Marcello going into detail about the debate between conferences over this college football playoff format. It's going to go to 16. It's just, is there going to be automatic qualifiers? Is there not going to be automatic qualifiers?
That's the funny thing to me is like, everybody's discussing 16-team formats, and we don't actually have a confirmation on that or not. It's just like become widely accepted. Like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to go to 16.
It was dumb in the beginning, wasn't it?
Sure.
I mean, we knew it was going to be at 16.
And had they gone to 14, it's like, all right, well, in a couple of years, we're just going to go 16 anyway. Right. So
it's like the NFL.
Well.
We know you're going to go to 18 games. Why do 17?
Because it's like, when we were going to expand out past 4, there was early talk of like, hey, we're going to go to 8, and then eventually go to 12. It's like, well, let's just go to 12 then. Mm-hmm. Why wait?
Absolutely.
Just do it.
So here's Heather Dinich and Brandon Marcello discussing this debate between conferences over the college football playoff format. That will be cut 8, Dave.
But Greg Sankey said yesterday that he believes that independent decisions can be made. So he said that he thinks that you can make a scheduling decision without knowing the playoff, although it's not ideal, and the timeline is certainly not optimal. But you're 100% right, because multiple athletic directors went on the record yesterday. I asked Scott Strickland, can you get to a 9-game conference schedule without AQs and knowing the playoff? And he said, I can't, personally.
He'll be here in a minute. We'll ask him.
Yeah, you can ask him in a minute. But there's a definite tie-in for the athletic directors. The question is, can Greg Sankey get the athletic directors on the same page as the coaches? And can everyone get on the same page with a 5+11 model? Because I can tell you this. There's support outside of the SEC for 5+11. Brett Yormark told me today, it's been my first choice all along. I presented it in Charlotte. I've talked to other conference commissioners throughout the league who have said, hey, this would be great. It's a good alternative. We love it.
It's a showdown right now between the ACC, Big 12, and the Big 10 SEC when it comes to college football playoff format. I think that much is clear. The lines have been drawn, and I had sources telling me, we reported it a couple of days ago, that the ACC and Big 12 are not going to lay down if the Big 10 and SEC try to shove down their throats, as they were telling me, the idea of doing 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big 10 and SEC.
Well, then they'll just leave you.
Yeah, probably.
The thing, and look, I get that, again, in theory. If you want to be, Mel Gibson in Braveheart, by the way, at the end he got disemboweled. If you want to be,
but he gave that great speech.
Yes, and he ran down the hill wearing a kilt, nothing on under it. It was phenomenal. But it's like, if you want to go up to this, we're going to fight you to the death on this, that's fine. You're going to lose. You just are.
Yeah.
Now, again, you and I have had this automatic qualifier conversation. this isn't about if it's right or not, if it's fair or not. The problem is the people with all the skins in the game, if that's what they want, and TV's going to want it too, right? And the networks are going to want it.
Sure.
If you're the ACC and the Big 12 or anybody who thinks this is not fair or not good for the game, they're going to lose.
Their best hope is what Sankey talked about earlier on in the week. And he says, well, when you look at the numbers, if we go to a 4 locked-in model, we're actually potentially losing spots here based on the past handful of years and what theoretically the playoff would have looked like. So you will hope that the SEC and the Big Ten look at that and say, actually, we could conceivably get a lot more teams in with the 5 and 11 model because, again, that's 11 at-large spots. With that could go to literally anybody. And I'm going to guarantee a vast majority of those spots are probably going to go to SEC and Big Ten teams.
Now, I agree with you on the SEC. I think if you're going to get somebody to vote your way, if you're the ACC and the Big 12, you would get the SEC for that reason you just brought up. The Big Ten seems to really be married to the 4 AQs.
Yeah.
And we went over their conference the other day. You could see the Big Ten benefiting the most because, you feel like Ohio State, they're always going to be there. Oregon's a really good program right now. But Oregon's also had a couple years where, they haven't been elite. Penn State, they're always hovering around the line of the college football playoff. We saw, Michigan, take away the Harbaugh 3 straight years at Michigan when they went to college football playoff. To think Michigan's a perennial college football playoff team, you're living in a fantasy world because they've never been.
Sure.
So if you're the Big Ten, you go, okay, we know we got Ohio State for sure because they've been good for 100 years. Penn State is always hovering, and they might be a permanent one once you expand the field. But besides that, there's no, like in the SEC, there are X amount of teams are going to be good enough to be in an expanded playoff format pretty much.
Right.
The Big Ten doesn't have that depth. They never have had that depth. And right now, last year worked out for them, right? They got 4.
They did.
Correct?
Yep.
But I think if you're the Big Ten, that 4 AQ appeals to you because deep down inside, there might be a year you're only going to have 2 or 3.
Yeah,
right?
And when you look at just the Big Ten standings from a year ago, you do kind of see like the line in the sand, right? Like the teams they got in last year, Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, those ended up being your top 4 in the conference standings. Illinois, 2nd or 5th on that list, obviously played South Carolina and got to their 10th win, on the season. But then it's like Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Southern Cal, Rutgers. This is a whole nother tier of teams in the Big Ten that, again, when you talk about the stack up of the SEC and the Big Ten, could every SEC team beat every Big Ten team? No, probably not. But that middle ground of the SEC, we talk about that, like now that we're out to 16, that like 5th to 12th in the SEC, very fluid, very interchangeable, and you have a lot of competition within the middle there. I don't think you can say the same thing about the Big Ten.
No. I think what's going to happen, like you saw Illinois pop up this year and win 10 games. That's great. Wonderful. Nice. Sweet. But Illinois, that's not Illinois.
Not
half the
usually.
people on campus don't even know they have a football program.
And was that their first 10-win season since they went to that Rose Bowl like 20 years ago?
Long time.
Yeah.
Indiana, they took advantage of a really weak schedule and a really good football coach who came in this year, and the perfect storm all worked for them, right? But Indiana, there's no guarantee we'll ever see Indiana again in a college football playoff. You go through all those teams. Minnesota, 1 year Fleck had a double-digit win campaign. Yeah, Iowa, Ferentz has had some double-digit win years. But, again, then there's times they've fallen under that. So that whole middle of the Big Ten.
And this is why it's so interesting, because we know the SEC and the Big Ten are working together, and they yield most of the power, and they work together to get that power. I don't think we saw them butting heads on what the format was going to be, because for a while it seemed like they were both married to the 4 AQ system. Like, hey, this is going to benefit us. It's great for us and getting more teams in and that kind of stuff. And again, now the SEC seems to be pivoting to the 5+11 model. So it's like, okay, the mom and dad are arguing who's going to win here. You know what I mean?
All right, Ross Dellinger, let's get to this, Dave. Cut 9 real fast. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports
does a
great
shot glasses.
job. Great job of covering college football. And every time he gives numbers, drink.
Take a shot.
All right, make sure you're not driving anywhere soon. Here's Cut 9 from Ross Dellinger about the 5'11" model.
We know the SEC is considering really it seems like two formats, Paul. This 5+11 you see there on the screen, where it's basically the same format as we have now, right? But it adds four at-large spots. They're also considering the 4-4-2-2-1, which we've talked about a lot on your show, that designates multiple AQs per league. But today, in response to the SEC considering the 5+11 so seriously, which I think was a little bit unexpected from Big Ten territory, the Big Ten ADs did have a meeting earlier today, had a call with Commissioner Tony Petitti, and I think most of them feel that they would not support a 5+11 format if the SEC remained at 8 conference games, because the Big Ten is at 9 conference games. So basically, you know, they might say the SEC gets one sort of pushover game in this. And if you're in a model 5+11 with so many at large, 11, right? Every win and loss is even more important. And the Big Ten has now for weeks, if not months, Paul, been on the 4-4-2-2-1 format. And even the SEC athletic director room, I think the majority of them was on the 4-4-2-2-1 format. But there's been some change this week. It's pretty clear that the coaches came in and they are not in favor of that. And I think they're not in favor of that for a few reasons. One, I don't think most of the coaches in the SEC don't want to play a 9th conference game. And I think when you have 4-4-2-2-1 format, that would lead itself to playing a 9th conference game. Okay. And I don't know how many coaches want to play these play-in games that they talked about doing along with the 4-4-2-2-1. So the ADs heard today from some somewhat, I heard, frustrated coaches at this model. And so we have a real serious consideration here from the SEC ADs and presidents today and then tomorrow for this 5-11 that has more at-larges than the automatic qualifiers.
Everybody okay? Everybody sober? No.
Wow. That's a lot of numbers, man. Here's the interesting part of that is the Big Ten got together and had a vote real quick, or had a meeting saying basically, well, we're not going with this 5-11 thing unless the SEC goes to 9 games. Now, the SEC, the coaches don't want to go to 9 games. It's easy because, again, that's going to be a 9th SEC game where I can get another L. Yep. That can hurt my trip to a bowl game, that can hurt my employment. And so I get coaches into play-in rounds. You're going to have 1 or 2 play-in rounds in this whole thing. So, of course, coaches don't want those extra games. Sure. I mean, that's more chance of guys to wear down, get hurt before you get the college football playoff. So I get why coaches aren't into this. And, you know, again, I think the AQ, the automatic qualifiers, despite taking the committees out, which makes me happy, the rest of it, I don't think it's fair that you hand a conference X amount of bids before they earn them.
The question becomes is how much do the coaches' opinions actually matter?
Can I be honest with you?
Probably not a lot.
Not a lot.
Because here's the thing. If you're going to go to a 9th game, ESPN has said they will pony up the money for it. So you're making more money by playing more conference games. So Sankey can say, hey, guys, I understand your concerns. I hear you, but, yeah, we're going to chase the money here.
You like paying for players?
Yeah. Well, you can do even more of that now.
You want to hit the 18.5 rev share?
Yeah.
Well, guess what?
And again,
we got to find money.
Let's be honest. You're a 16-team league and you're not playing 9 games. Kind of ridiculous if you ask me. I want uniformity across all conferences. The ACC and the SEC need to get to 9 games.
They all should play 9 games. I mean, to me, having 1 at 9 and 1 at 8 makes no sense.
No.
None at all. But I feel like, again, the 5-11, if it's going to happen, the SEC is going to... Look, the SEC is going to 9 games no matter what because of TV.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get more money. Sure. And that's just where we're at. And then everything else will start to work itself out with the 5-11 model or play-ins or whatever. AQs. But that starts with the 9th game, and that's coming because ESPN's going to pony up the dough. What's trending at 2, kickoff times for South Carolina's first 2 games of the season. We'll let you know what those are next here on the Halftime Show with David Aaron, Tyler Head, and Terry Ford on the game. Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We are rolling What's Trending at 2 here on the game. Coming up at 3, post-game show. Elijah rolling solo. Our guy Jay didn't sound good this morning when he called me. He was like, "How are you doing, Terry? Got a little throat problem, feeling under the weather." I'm like, okay, this sounds like a weird, obscene phone call. Thanks, Jay. So Jay's under the weather. Hopefully be back tomorrow. Elijah will roll solo today on the post-game show from 3 to 6 on the game. All right, South Carolina's first 2 home games of the 2025 football season will be played at night. Saturday, September 6th against South Carolina State, 7 o'clock kick. That means Gamecocks game day will roll at what time, Tyler Head?
2.
There you go. We'll start everything with Gamecocks game day at 2 o'clock.
By the way, how hot do you think it's going to be that day?
About 110 in the shade.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's going to be cooking burgers on the station vehicle at Jay's Corner. All right, that'll be streamed by ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus. And then the second home game, the conference opener against Vandy, set for Saturday, September 13th. The kick will either be at 7 p.m. or 7:45 p.m. Eastern. So that means Gamecocks game day will start either at 2 or 2:45.
That's right.
That game will be on ESPN or the SEC Network. So that's your first 2 home games, both at night under the lights at Williams-Brice.
Hey, it's kind of the neat part about actually coming off of a good season is people want to put you in prime time.
Yep. And you're having a quarterback that's looked at as a Heisman Trophy contender. You got an edge pass rusher that is being looked at as, well, let's see, Pro Football Focus, Dylan Stewart, just by pass rush, in their minds, the best pass rusher, the best edge pass rusher in the country.
Hard to argue with that.
They say he's the number 2 overall edge, and this is not a shock because, his run defense has to tick up.
Sure.
And we saw that last year, and we talked about it. At the end of the year, it's like, okay, how does Dylan Stewart take the next step? He's going to have to adjust to a lot of double teams and a lot of chips, but he's also got to get more consistent playing the run. So that's not a surprise, but even with that, still number 2 in the country, according to Pro Football Focus, is an edge defender and the best pass rusher off the edge in the country.
Yep.
So when you got that guy and you got Lenore Sellers, you get on prime time.
Oh,
you
yeah.
got guys.
You're going to be featured quite a bit.
Yep, you got dudes. So that's the first 2 home games and their kickoff times. Again, 2 night games under the lights at Williams-Brice. All right, we are rolling What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Real quick, Lane Kiffin. It's funny how Lane Kiffin has become like the voice of reason about certain things.
Sure.
Which is kind of scary. Here is Lane Kiffin, his mind. What would be the best system if you had a 16-team playoff? And it's very simple. Here's Lane.
I think I would just sum it up by, after all the data and analytics, about if there were these different systems over the years, who would be left out and who would be in, whether that was 12-team, 16 system. And it just appeared to me that there's still flaws in every system. The best system should be 16 and should be the 16 best. And I don't know exactly how that's figured out. I think that they've got to use some of the indexes and have people, I'm not saying that because I'm in here, probably media people that watch the most, that are on it and don't have any other motives in it, and figure out the best 16 teams. Because we obviously can't play enough games over that, to be 32 or 64 or something to figure out the best. But I think as you watch this year in sports, and now baseball, softball, after men's basketball, so many dominate, whether it's the final 8 or 12 or 16 with SEC teams, and their systems of figuring that out. And I think a lot of that has to do with the non-conference amount of opponents they play. Obviously we don't have as many games, so we can't do that, because you see, for instance, baseball, these teams that have made it this far that have SEC and conference records just a little bit over 500. So I think that would be the best way to do it. Get rid of automatics and figure out a system to get the best 16 teams in.
It sounds interesting in theory. I'll say this. I still think winning a conference should matter. And I get what Lane's saying, to get the best 16. There are a lot of people who agree with that. So just get the best 16. I still think winning a conference should matter.
Well,
and you should get an automatic bid for that, but you don't get a seed.
Here's my thing, though. If you're good enough to win your conference, shouldn't you already be in the top 16? Like, I feel like that's a conversation we're not typically going to have to have.
Ready, though, to be fair, Arizona State, really, were they one of the 12 best teams in college football last year? Let's be honest for a minute.
Probably not.
And they won, and I'm not going to say the Big 12 had a bunch of good teams that just beat the snot out of each other.
It was the most wide open conference we had last year.
So it wasn't, the conference was terrible. No, it wasn't terrible. They just didn't have, like, the level one like all these other conferences have, like the Big 10, the SEC,
sure,
the ACC. There was no top layer.
Yeah.
It was just all layer 2, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I mean, that one you can maybe, and that could just be an outlier. We might not ever see that again, to be fair. But that's one that might go down the road of.
I think over, like, if we did Lane's format where it's just straight up the top 16, which, like, you know, I can be in favor of, certainly. Makes the most sense. Very simple. I think maybe once out of every 5 years, you'd run into, like, the ACC champion or the Big 10 or Big 12 champ. Because it's those two conferences, right? Like, the SEC champ or the Big 10 champ is never going to find itself outside the top 16. Yeah. That's just not going to happen. We're talking about the other two power conferences that are getting left out. And, you know, you can make the conversation of, okay, should the G5 get an automatic spot? If you're a good enough G5 team, you should also probably be in the top 16 yourself. You know, like when Cincinnati got their bid to the playoff a couple years ago, they legitimately were in the top 4. They, and whether you believe they should have been in there or not, based on everything that went that season, in the eyes of the committee, they earned a top 4 spot and got to be a part of it. Notre Dame, when they went in, you know, in the 14 playoff, they were in the top 4 and got in that way. So if you're good enough, you should be able to be in the top 16, not, you know, okay, well, the best Group 5 champion is this 8-4 team from the Mountain West. We'll give them a bone. Like, no, if you're not good enough, you shouldn't be in.
And you're not wrong, and I think it would happen once every God knows when. But I just think there's something to winning a conference championship. The traditionalist in me, I still like the idea if you win a conference championship in these leagues, and like you said, they're most likely going to be in the 16 anyway. So what's the harm in making them an automatic qualifier? As long as you're not getting them a top 4 seed.
Sure.
Because that we saw that last year, and that was ridiculous.
Sure.
But they are, I would say, even 8 times out of 10 will be in the top 16.
Yeah, they should be. It's going to be a rare instance of those kind of things happening. And, you know, I think there would be a lot of years, if we're just going straight up 16, that you're going to look at the SEC or the ACC and the Big 12 championship games as winning you're in. Like we did for so many years with the Big 10 and the SEC championship games. Like, all right, winner gets in, loser goes home, or loser goes to another bowl game or something along those lines, because we know the majority of these at-large bids are probably going to go to SEC and Big 10 teams. So you could have instances where the only way you're getting in is by winning your conference championship.
All right, we're hanging out, talking about what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions here on The Game. Up next, it's May 29th, the greatest day in the history of the world. Something happened on this day about 100 years ago that connects in a lot of our conversations we're having about college football today. We'll get into that next on the greatest day in the history of the world on the Halftime Show right here on The Game. All right, time to check the greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by Purple Wave Auction. This day in 1922, Tyler.
Yep.
The Supreme Court of the United States of America rules that organized baseball is primarily a sport, not a business. Therefore, it is not subjected to antitrust laws and interstate commerce regulations. There, sir, started this whole ball of wax.
And what did that eventually lead to for Major League Baseball? Get your shot glass.
Ready? Collective bargaining.
And you know, what was about the time frame that the NCAA was established to violate said antitrust laws? Was it around then? I think it was.
So basically, this is where, you know, the NCAA is trying the whole, well, you know, we're not really a business, so we shouldn't be under the same umbrella of a business. Major League Baseball, you gave them antitrust exemptions. We need them even more because of what we're dealing with. Ready? Amateur athletes.
We got to protect the children. Think of the children.
Think of the children.
The 18 to 22-year-old children. Think of them.
With facial hair.
Yes.
And kids.
Putting, at that time, literally their lives on the line in a lot of these sports.
Well, that's the thing that I think kills me. We were talking about it in here during a break about the NCAA. It's like when you are making business decisions based on power and greed, that's where you end up going.
Sure.
And that's why this has gone off the rails so much, because everything not everything, a lot of things the NCAA does is based on making as much money as they can, getting their grubby little hands on, and the power that they have had for decades and decades, because basically been breaking the law.
I still like to think over the decades, like at least once a week, the people in charge of the NCAA would get together in a meeting and be like, can you believe we're still getting away with this? Can you believe they haven't caught on to us yet?
As I get the cone of silence down and everything so nobody can hear them. It's mind-numbing to me that it took so long for people to get past this. Well, you know, they're amateur athletes, and we're protecting them.
Yep.
We're protecting the amateur athlete from all this money and professionalism.
And let's be honest here, because extremely high levels of revenue in college sports is still, when you look at the whole scheme of things, only within the past couple decades, because TV deals only came along, late 80s? Oh, we've been looking at, we're doing trivia questions on the countdown to the start of the season, and even to the mid-90s, half the games for South Carolina weren't on TV. There weren't these big multi-gazillion-dollar TV deals that, athletic departments were making millions upon millions of dollars on. In fact, what coach was opposed? Was it Switzer that was opposed to having more games on television back in the 80s?
Was it Switzer?
One of the high-profile coaches. Because, again, it was the thing, you got one game on TV, and if you made a bowl game, you got another one.
Well, I don't know if it was Switzer, because remember, Oklahoma, I think it was Georgia and Oklahoma were the ones that sued to get the right to have
maybe it wasn't Switzer. Alvarez, maybe?
Could have been.
Yeah, one high-profile coach was against having more games on TV.
And if you think about how ludicrous that is now.
I know. But again, that's where all the money comes from. And again, going back to the 70s and 80s, majority of games were on radio, where you bought a ticket and went down to Williams-Brice Stadium to watch it. So all this money being in sports that athletes could potentially be benefiting from, it's still relatively new in the timeline of college football and college sports in general.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the early 1900s. The NCAA came around because college football was very, very popular, and the players wanted to start getting paid. And also, we got to come up with something. Yeah. How about the NCAA? That sounds good. They're amateurs. Okay.
And again, back then it was $10 a game, or you got paid $1,000 for a season. It was pretty minuscule, all things considered. So it wasn't like guys were making multi-millions of would have been making millions of dollars back then.
But they were like, we can't pay them anything. We want all the money for ourselves.
And that's where it started. And again, for the longest time, we all just kind of it makes sense to me. Yeah, go.
And everybody just went along with it.
And then eventually, some people are like, wait a minute, no, this actually is illegal.
Right, because they are adults.
Yes.
Wow, how about that? 1971. Who won their second straight Indy 500 in 1971? You'll get this.
Didn't we do 1970 yesterday? Was it Al Unser again?
Yes. Won his second straight Indy with a record of 157.735 miles per hour.
No, that's average speed, not top speed.
Average speed.
Okay.
1977, A.J. Foyt becomes the first driver to win 4 Indy 500s. And, of course, the first woman to race was...
1977.
She only made it 27 laps, which had mechanical problems. Danica Patrick.
It wasn't Danica. She wasn't born then.
I know. Once I say it, you're going to go, really?
Go for it.
Janet Guthrie.
I was going to say Janet Guthrie. Dang it.
This day in 1977, Australian Sue Prell became the first female golfer to hit consecutive hole-in-ones. 13th and 14th holes at the Chestwood Golf Club in Sydney. Crikey! She had a Foster's. But yeah, she first female to golfer to go consecutive holes in one.
By the way, you want to anger an Australian, bring up Foster's.
Yeah, they don't like that.
They don't like that.
They don't like that at all. 1980, Larry Bird beats out Magic Johnson for the NBA Rookie of the Year award.
That was, talk about a tough decision.
Those two guys, and really those two guys uplifted franchises in Boston and LA that needed uplifting.
And it's crazy how married at the hip these two guys were going back to their days in college, days in the NBA. Like, again, you'd be hard-pressed to find a rivalry that lasted as long as those two did.
And it's funny, and this is just the way sports was back then, is like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, they had never really met, like hung out.
Yeah.
And obviously there was a jealousy and animosity between the two because, like you said, Larry Bird's undefeated Indiana State team lost to Magic Johnson's Michigan State team for the national championship in '79. Larry Bird goes to Boston. Magic goes to L.A. They're playing in the finals. Boston gets over on L.A. that first time they played in the finals. I mean, and they were like competing for Rookie of the Year, competing for MVPs. They never really hung out because it was a different world then.
Sure.
And then they met doing a commercial, a shoe commercial. I think it was McDonald's, one of the two. But they met doing a commercial. And all of a sudden they became buds. I mean, really good buds.
Sure.
But like today, we dog these guys because they don't hate each other anymore and they like each other. After games, they give chest bumps and smile and give bro hugs because they know each other through all these AAUs or all these other ways in youth sports and collegiate sports to connect.
It was also easier to hide back then. Because, again, if you didn't read the story or see the video of them in the commercial, you would have never known that they were friends. You could still go in to watch the Lakers and the Celtics, be like, oh man, those guys hate each other. And now everything's so out there. It's like, oh, well, these guys are friends. They don't hate each other. So that cloak of, rivalry is gone now.
And back then there wasn't the free agency to the extent you see today. And guys don't go to a bunch of different teams and meet this and do that and all that sort of thing. So it was just a different world. The Celtics and Lakers legitimately in those days hated each other.
Yep.
Legitimate. And just like the Pistons, everybody hated the Pistons. And the Pistons hated everybody. It was just a different world sports-wise. And now old school sports fans can't stand the way these guys are today. I mean, I lost track of how many... Like, for example, when I was doing, sports talk in Baltimore, how many people would get mad at the old school sports fans at the end of a Raven football game where the Ravens would walk across the field and the other team would walk across the field and they all start talking and laughing and giggling and hugging each other.
Sure.
Drive sports fans crazy.
Why are they punching each other?
I can't believe it.
Somebody put someone in a headlock.
That dude they just hugged and smiled. What the hell? We just lost.
I was out there. I'd spit in that guy's face.
I would. I'd smack him upside the face is what I'd do. They're exchanging jerseys. I mean, and I always say this to people, today's athlete, you, and this is not a criticism, you have more emotion invested in it than some of the professional athletes do.
For a lot of them, again, it's a job.
It's what I'm saying. It's a job, and the job's over.
They don't bleed football like all of us necessarily.
Right, and when
they're really good at it.
Right, and when the job's over, they go talk to the guys who had a job too. Yeah, and they say hi.
Yeah,
and that's the reality of it. They to a percentage of professional athletes, it's a job.
Yeah. It's like two buddies. One works at Burger King, one works at McDonald's.
They're
not going to go out there and fist fight in the parking lot.
Punch each other.
It's a job.
Whopper's better. No, double quarter pounder.
If anything, they're getting food for each other.
Exactly.
Like, hey man, free Whopper. Here you go.
Throw another one in here. 1989, Philadelphia Phillies 12-time All-Star third baseman Mike Schmidt retires from Major League Baseball at age 39. Ricky Henderson steals his record, 893rd stolen base, breaking Ty Cobb's record on this day in 1990. And, of course, we got to get Wayne Gretzky in here because it's NHL playoff season. Gretzky scored an overtime goal to give the Kings a win over the Maple Leafs in the Western Conference Finals. And Roger Clemens, this day in 2002, records his 100th double-digit strikeout game of his career. Only Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson had more 100 strikeout games. Here's your greatest day in the history of the world. We'll pop back in here, do our handoff, sponsored by Little Pigs with Elijah Campbell. Also get our Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. Halftime show, final segment of our little get-together on the game. Get our Firehouse sub, text the hour in here at 803-404-6100. Then we'll do our handoff to our buddy Elijah Campbell from the postgame show. Sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. What do you got there on the old text machine there, man?
Nameless texter. The SEC has the strongest conference by far, but at the end of the day, what does that get you when all the other conferences have a few power teams and a bunch of weaker teams? So the SEC should be winning the championship every year. We're going on 3 years since the SEC's even played for the national championship.
I know. Think about it for a minute. I mean, and what happened last year is, I mean, it's so funny. You look at it as a down year for the SEC because of what happened in the college football playoff.
Yep.
And, you know, again, Georgia, it's funny, Kirby Smart, didn't get to play it yesterday. Paul Feinbaum asked Kirby, he's like, you know, how do you feel about the perception that Georgia had a down year even though you won the SEC championship? And he started laughing. Kirby's like, I like it because I want that expectation. I want you to say, wow, you guys had a down year. Because we want to be playing, we want to be winning championships every year. We want our fan base to expect us to be great. And I thought, oh my God, what a great answer. Because I'm so, and I say this all the time, I'm so over we shock the world and nobody respects us. And even though Kirby, when Georgia won the 1 year, everybody thought nobody respected us. No, everybody picked you to win.
7-5,
7-5, baby. But I just always find it refreshing when a coach, you know, says, yeah, oh hell yeah. We want to be great. Come get us. Come on, get us, because we're great. But Georgia was looked at as down last year. Texas, yeah, I mean, they were in the college football playoff, and they gave Ohio State everything they could handle. But, you know, you looked at Texas, and you're like, that was a really good team. You didn't go, wow, that's a great team that could win the whole thing. And then Tennessee, it was kind of like, I guess, if you were going to call a down year, you would say it was a down year for the SEC.
Sure.
Or just that the middle class of the SEC was probably as good as it's ever been, and they were able to kind of play spoiler more than normal years.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that with that 5-12 we talked about was stronger, and the top was a little bit weaker than in years past. Again, Alabama took a step back as Saban stepped away. LSU wasn't as good at the end as we thought they would be. So like that upper tier wasn't what it usually is.
The gap, between your teams 5 through 12 and 1 through 4, it wasn't like the Grand Canyon.
Usually it's a lot bigger.
Yeah, usually it's massive.
Yeah, and part of that is, you know, Saban pieced out and Caleb DeBoer had his first year at Bama. Not that Caleb DeBoer has no talent. Not that Caleb DeBoer is not a really good head coach, but there's a transition from the greatest coach in the history of college football to anybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you have the transition at Alabama. And, you know, Georgia, I'll ask you because you know a little bit more about Georgia than we do. I know Kirby, I mean, he does use the transfer portal, but he doesn't use it the way everybody else does. And there's this big question, does Kirby have to come around more to the transfer portal and not just always saying we've got the best recruiting class in the country and they'll develop?
And he's addressed that coming away from this season, like, hey, we just don't have the depth anymore because guys aren't sticking around for 3 and 4 years waiting for that 1 year to play because they have the opportunities to go elsewhere. And you look at what they did in the portal when it comes to wide receiver, getting Branch out of Southern Cal, Noah Thomas from Texas. They hit that immediately as soon as the season ended. So I think they have kind of stepped up what they're doing in the portal because, again, they can see it's not what it was a couple years ago.
That's where I think with Kirby, because it is a 5-star will come in, he'll sit a year for you.
Sure.
And if he doesn't look like he's going to start the next year, guess what he's going to do?
Yeah, go somewhere else.
See you bye.
Somebody's going to pay him a ton of money to go play for them.
Right. And I guess, Elijah, to the point, like you talk about Tennessee, everybody thought Tennessee would be better last year because Nico's going to be so much better than Joe Milton, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, first
that
of all,
was the expectation.
First of all, low bar on Joe Milton. Let's get that out of the way. But Nico wasn't Hendon Hooker.
No.
Or anywhere close.
He couldn't throw the deep ball. He couldn't connect on the deep ball. I mean, the ball probably looked pretty in the air, but it's kind of got to land in the hands of receivers. That was a big issue.
He's UCLA's problem now.
Yeah, he is. And I think he's going to learn that the grass ain't greener on the other side of the fence because that's not an offense built for his success.
No. And to the point of, though, that led the SEC's top shelf, where we thought it was going to be top shelf, to slide more down to that middle, and that middle might have been better than everybody thought. Post-game show, who you got coming up real quick?
Michael Sauls.
All right, we're done.